Oke, halo, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Susanto, and all my friends that watch this video. So maybe this is the last duty that I do for this semester for the introduction of literature subject, and maybe this is the last material of this semester and this subject. So today I want to present to you about my material, which has a title Basic Approach to Literary Interpretation and How Literary Critics Understand Literary Works. So, do you know that different perspective can create a different meaning in the same text? If you didn't know, I want to tell you about the basic approach to literary interpretation, how the interpretation can create the different meaning from the same text. Maybe it can explain the background, maybe it can explain the situation of the text and anything else. So the first one is, why do we need literary interpretation? I create a funnel in this page. The first one is literary work. So I give the pattern, I give the path how the text can be interpretation and how the text can create it. How can text can create a meaning. The first one is from the basic, from the big part is literary work can create many possible meanings, and that meanings can make in the interpretation, and interpretation can make us understand the text itself. Literary works contain layers of meaning. Different readers may understand text differently, and literary interpretation provides systematic ways to analyze literature. So from this page we can know that literary can create an interpretation that will make us understand what the meaning of the text. Next, what is literary interpretation? According to M.H. Abrams, literary interpretation is the process of explaining and understanding the meaning of a literary text. Meaning refers to the ideas, message, themes, or significance conveyed by a literary text. Context refers to the historical, cultural, social, and political circumstance surrounding a literary work. And critical thinking is the ability to analyze, evaluate, and interpret literary text using evidence and logical reasoning. So from this definition, you can also find another definition at internet, but I use definition from M.H. Abrams, which I think represented the literary itself. So literary interpretation is the process of explaining and understanding the meaning of the text, which the meaning is ideas, content, themes, or circumstance. But before we learn about literary interpretation, we also learned that before this material, we learned about the element of literature. Before interpreting text, we must identify its literary element. I divide this page with three tables. The first one is for fiction, second is drama, and the last is poetry, which has a different element. Fiction has a plot, character, theme, and setting. Drama has a dialogue, conflict, stage direction, and theme. And poetry has imagery, symbol, metaphor, and rhyme. Those elements can create an interpretation that in the end can make us understand what the meaning of the text or what the meaning of the literature text. Next is the page from the major approaches to literary interpretation. So in this page I want to give you an information that it has interpretations has 7 types of interpretation. The first one is formalist, second one is historical, the third is biographical, fourth is moral, fifth psychological, second sociological, and eighth reader response, which I will explain at the next page. So this is just the opening of this material. Next is from approach, formalist approach. What is the formalist approach? Formalist approach is interpret the text based on the text itself. Inside the text, we look at the text, we see the text, and we interpret the text from that. Formalist criticism focuses on the text itself rather than the author, reader, or historical background. The key focus of this paper is of this page is plot, character, setting, theme, symbolism, imagery, and language style. So we can understand the meaning of the text by focus on the key elements. I want to give you one line or 2 line, or this may be the paragraph. So basic example from this paper or from this presentation is the lottery, which published by 1948 after the post World War II, when the world is suffer from the event of the World War, and this text is published. Text was published at that time. The example is the morning of June 7th to 27th was clear and sunny, with the first warmth of a full summer day. The flowers were blossoming profusely. In this sentence line, we can take one sentence which create interpretation. The first one is vivid sensory image. Jackson uses highly tactile and visual description, just like clear and sunny, fresh, warmth, blossoming perfectly, to evoke a sense of peace and vitality. These details frame the environment as a scene of traditional pastoral beauty. So we can know the environment just to read the text. Irony and foreshadowing. The central purpose of formalism is to look at how a text works within itself. So the text itself explains the situation of the text. In this line, it represented by the sentence clear and sunny. Next. The next is from the approach of historical approach. So from this, how can we know the background of the text? Maybe when it published, or where is the setting? We know from the historical approach. Historical criticism examines a literary work in relation to the historical, cultural, social, and political condition of its time. The key element is historical event, social condition, cultural value, political condition, and historical background. The example also the same text, that is the lottery, 1948. Although the villager had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered to use stone. This sentence suggests that customs can survive even when people no longer remember their original purpose, considering that the lottery was published in 1948, shortly after World War II. The lottery explained that it published it was published post World War II and explained the conformity in America community and fear of blindly following authority. Pardon me. Okay, next continue to the next approach, which is biographical approach. What is the biographical approach? Biographical criticism interprets literary works by examining the author's life, experiences, beliefs, and personal background. So, we can understand the text just to look the author's background, because sometimes author create a text from their story, real story. So the key focus is author's life, personal experience, education, belief and value, and significant life event. How does the author's life influence the literary work? I give you the example, the line. Although the villager had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered to use stone. A biographical critic may argue that this passage reflects of Shirley Jackson's concern about society's tendency to follow tradition without questioning them. So, because he knew that the customs doesn't have the meaning, but at that time the society just do it. He wrote the text by his experience. Next is from the moral of philosophical. The moral of philosophical approach examines the ethical values, moral lessons, and philosophical ideas presented in a literary work. The key focus of this approach is right or wrong, moral values, human behavior, ethical choices, and life lesson. So we can interpret the text by to know from to know the right or wrong that written in the text. What moral lesson can readers learn from the text? Although the same page, the same example, although the villager had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered they used to use stones. This passage teaches readers about the danger of following tradition without questioning their morality. The villagers continue a violent practice simply because it has always been part of their community. So, moral approach look at this example from the right or wrong, and they can create understanding. Oh, so because the villagers do it without questioning them, it may be wrong because they didn't know what the purpose of the ritual or what the purpose of the stone itself. Next, psychological. The psychological approach examines the thoughts, emotions, motivation, desires, and behaviors of characters in a literary work. The key focus of motivation, personality, emotion, desire, fear, trauma, unconscious mind. I'll give you the different example. It isn't fair. It isn't right, Mrs. Hutchinson screamed. This statement reveals that Tessie Hutchinson's emotional response when she becomes the lottery's victim. Earlier, she participated in the ritual without objection, but once her own life is threatened, fear and self-preservation emerge. A psychological critic may argue that her behavior A psychological critic may argue that her behavior reflects a natural human instinct to survive. So, we can understand the meaning of the text by look at a psychological sentence in this text by it isn't fair, it isn't right. Nggak benar, ini salah ini. Saya difitnah saya juga dia. Mungkin seperti itu nanti. Next is from the approach of sociological. From a sociological perspective, the lottery criticizes communities that prioritize conformity over individual judgment. The story demonstrates how social pressure can lead ordinary people to participate in violence without questioning it. The sociological approach examines that the relationship between literature and society, focusing on how literary work reflects, criticizes, or influences social condition. The key focus of this approach is culture, social class, traditions, power relations, social inequality, community behavior. The same example, although the villager had forgotten the ritual and lost the original black box, they still remembered to use stones. How sociological understand the meaning? By look at the villager that forgotten the purpose but still to use the stone. So because the community is approve this ritual, the ritual can continue without personal judgment on questioning it. And the next is reader response. The reader response approach argues that the meaning of a literary work is created through the interaction between the text and the reader. The key focus is reader's interpretation, personal experience, feelings and reaction, individual perspective, and meaning-making process. So, me myself, have a strong relationship to understand the text by my experience itself. The reader response. So I give the example. It isn't fair. It isn't fair. It isn't right. Mrs. Hutchinson screamed. Some reader may sympathize with Tessie and view her as a victim, but others may focus on her hypocrisy because she accepted the lottery until she was chosen. Some readers may feel anger toward the villagers. So different readers create a different interpretation and that follow as a different understanding of the text or just from the one sentence. I can interpret this with my experience. Maybe my friends can interpret this sentence with the experience, and in the end maybe our meaning is different and our understanding also different. So the readers create or connect the strong connection from the text itself to make understand the text. So the conclusion is literary interpretation helps readers understand literature beyond the surface level. Different approaches focus on different aspects of a literary work. Formalists focus on the text, historical focus on the history, biographical focus on the author, moral focus on the values, psychological focus on the mind, sociological focus on the society, and the last reader's response focus on the reader itself. can create a different interpretation and in the end create a different understanding. So there are a lot of factors that create an understanding of the text depends on the approach that will be used. No single approach provides a complete interpretation. So to create a complete interpretation, we have to use we must use not just one approach but a lot of approach that we can compile this at the end to create a full interpretation and create a full understanding, and we can explain to the others about the text understanding. Literary interpretation develops critical thinking and analytical skill. Combining multiple approaches often leads to a richer understanding of literature. So this is the pattern. Literature has a text, has an author, has a society, and has a reader. Those four factors, those four keys create interpretations, and in the end it can create the meaning which follow with understanding. This is my final statement. Literature doesn't offer one fixed meaning, rather it invites multiple perspectives that deepen our understanding of text, people, and society. In conclusion, literary interpretation is not about finding one correct meaning. Instead, it is about exploring literature from different perspectives. Each approach offers unique insight and helps us understand text more deeply. Therefore, literary interpretation is an essential tool for developing critical thinking and appreciating the complexity of literature. So we arrived at the last page, which is question and answer. If you have question, you can contact me by personal contact or just shout out on my media social. And this is the last page, which is thank you. You have watched this presentation from the beginning until the end, and I hope you can take the benefit from this presentation. Maybe you from the Mr. Susanto, and maybe my friends can understand this presentation and can take the benefit from this presentation. Also from me can take the benefit, which is thank you to allow me to give you the presentation by video, because the meeting of this subject is limited. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to explain to you about my material. So that is my last statement. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the time. My name is Sandra Arka Fediansyah. Goodbye and see you next time.